on making it, end of week 3, and we'll be talking about the GSG grants tonight. So my name is Kimberly Basadre, and I'm the GSG Director of Grants, and that's my email right there. Next slide, please. So for our agenda, I'm going to be talking about the different grants that you can apply to, what the award looks like, the grants timeline. So from when you apply to when you hear back, like what's going on, and also like what are the dates for that. I will also go over the required documents, because typically like sometimes we have to mark an application incomplete because they're missing something. So I want to make sure that we can talk about that. A list of approved and denied applications, just like categories. We're not going to go over actual applications. And also just like my little spiel for joining the grants review committee. So before we get started, I was asked to, make this more humanized and, introduce ourselves. So again, my name is Kim Basadre. I'm the Director of Grants. And in terms of like my background, I came from like a low income background and like first generation. I went to UCSD for my undergrad. And the reason I applied to be part of GSG this year is because I also like benefited like applying to this grant when, like as a student, because I had like emergencies that I wasn't like expecting, and they cost a lot of money. So, upon receiving this kind of fund, I was just like, oh, like I really want to make sure, I want to make sure that I can give back and like be part of this process. So as a director of grants, I oversee the process, and I also like train our reviews committee just to make sure that whatever applications we're getting aligns with what the grant can fund, and also making sure that our graduate student dollars are not being misused or abused, because anyone can just like turn in like whatever application. So that's me, and then I'll pass it on to Alexis.
All right, sounds good. Thank you, Bestie. Hi, everybody. My name is Alexis Linares Sierra, pronouns he, him, his, and I am one of 2 GSG senators representing Rossier's School of Education, alongside with Franklin. Just a little bit about my background. So I'm a second year EC student at Rossier. So shout out to all the EC people that are here. Love y'all for coming through. Um, I also identify coming from a low income background, first generation, someone who always had social, financial stability, instability always in mind when it just comes to funding overall. And so I think for me coming into GSG within Rossier, I think it was really important for me in terms of the representation and the advocacy and self-advocacy piece, and ensuring that just not just for me, but for everyone around me, like my colleagues, my community members, can receive financial resources, and just ensuring that they can, receive some type of support, especially when it comes to through their time like in education. I think that's really highly important. And so I'm really happy to be here to provide some financial information. Seems like we're a pretty small group, so this can be like very intimate. Of course, an opportunity for you all to open up with any questions, comments, concerns that you may have in our Q&A portion, which we'll stop recording just to give you all the freedom to do so. And just having the freedom just to ask all your questions, our experiences too, because as Kim mentioned, we're all part of the grants committee, which we can talk about right at the end. And yeah, we can go from there. But other than that, I'll pass it along to Franklin.
Thank you, Alexis. I'm also, like Alexis mentioned, I'm also a Rossier GSG senator. I'm a first generation. I'm on the EC program, first year, and the reason why I wanted to get involved with the GSG and RSOC is because I wanted to get to know about like the resources that we have here on campus, and also learn about it, but also inform students within our community too, to apply for these types of grants, not just within the EC program, but all specifically all Rossier students, just to ensure that we have these types of resources, because sometimes life can happen, and therefore we have like these emergency grants, these caretaker grants, but we also have the neurophysiological grants as well. So I think it's very important, to inform about, these types of grants that we have here on campus that students are able to apply. Therefore, we wanted to host this this workshop for students to kind of ask us questions, some of the mistakes that students have made in the past, but we'll go more in depth about that information. But just because your application comes back as incomplete doesn't mean you can't resubmit it. But we'll go more in depth about that. But I'll go ahead and pass it back to Kim.
Okay, thank you all for the wonderful introduction. So we can keep going. All right, so for the GSG grants, we have the emergency fund, which is unforeseen circumstances. Like Alexis and Franklin was mentioning earlier, sometimes life can happen, and I think when I was applying to this, it's always just nice to have a fund that you can apply to, whether you get it or not. It's just nice to like get that relief. It may not cover like the whole expenses, but it's just nice that you can apply for something and get like partial amount or the full amount. So it's up to 1,000 per academic year, and you can only apply for this fund one time. But the caveat is, like, let's say the first time you apply, you only apply for like 500 and got that amount. You can apply again to ask for the other 500 if you have like receipts. And then for the caretaker subsidy grant, this is for students who are primary care of dependents. So whether they have a child who are like really young, or taking care of loved ones who are no longer able to care for themselves or work to make ends meet. So this one is up to 1,800 per semester, and they can apply one time in the fall and one time in the spring. And then the third one is the Neuropsychological Evaluation Fund. So this is the test that you can get for diagnosis of mental health disorders and learning disabilities. This is up to 600 per year and can only apply one time per academic year. This one is also like really cool to have because we have students who are having a hard time focusing on their studies, and they're not really sure if they have some sort of like learning disability. So for them to have some kind of amount to get that like check, just to see if there's like anything, this fund is like really helpful for that. And then for the timeline, so right now the applications are open. So we are accepting applications from January 19th to February 2nd. And then during this time, me and the student GSG grants student worker are checking the submitted documents, and just so we can see like are there any missing documents, are there anything that they mentioned on their personal statement that is not quite like turned in. So just so we can make sure that everything is like complete even before the reviews committee can look at their application. The reason for that is like I just want to make sure that when the reviews committee are reviewing the application, we're minimizing the chances that it will be marked as incomplete. Because for me, it's like that's a waste of time. It's like let's see if if you already got the money, or if what you're asking for doesn't really align with our fund. Instead of saying like, hey, this is incomplete, you just forgot to turn in your STARS report, or you forgot to turn in one of the receipts. So I want to make sure that you get the correct decision instead of just saying incomplete. And then, so once we gathered all the documents, then the reviews committee start their process. So for this first cycle, it's gonna happen from February 2nd to the 12th. Last semester, I think it was only like 5 days, but I honestly think it's not a lot of time when we've opened the application for like 30 days. So that's a whole month, and only review for like 5 days. So I changed it this semester and make it longer, to recognize and honor that our committee members also have a life, and they're also students. There's a lot of things that we're juggling, so sometimes we're not available for those like 5 days that we allocate. So I want to extend it, and also just give them time to work and really review like the applications. And then the award notifications are gonna be coming out on Friday, February 16th. And that's when the applicant will hear whether it's awarded, denied, or moved to the next cycle. Sometimes we just don't have, we have a higher need than what we can fund. So what I do is just move those applications for the next cycle, because we only allocate like a certain amount per each month. All right, let's talk about the required documents that I was mentioning earlier. So the first one will be the graduate student programming fee. This is really important because this is where the funds are coming from, to fund the emergency grant, caretaker, and neuropsychological. So you're seeing right now that's like says like fall 2023. It's because I created this presentation like back then and just kind of like tweak it, but it should say grad student programming fee spring 2024 if you are applying this semester. The next one that we're looking at is the personal statement. So it should really discuss like what you need. So for the caretaker, talk about the increased like caretaker responsibilities, your need for funding, how does your sources of income look like, and how many dependents do you have under your care. For emergency fund, talk about the unforeseen situation and how did it set you back like financially. And then for the neuropsychological evaluation, you just have to talk about like why you need the test, like why is this going to be beneficial for you, and then have receipts for like your appointment and the actual test. Another one is the STARS report. I get a lot of questions like where you can find this. So it's gonna be under your My USC account, and then you go to Oasis, and then you will see STARS report. So once we receive this from you, what we look at is we make sure that you haven't graduated yet. Because to access the fund, you need to be currently enrolled as a student. Next slide, please. And we also want to make sure that you are currently enrolled like in a class. Because if you don't have that, then financial aid will say like, hey, like this student is not currently enrolled. Like, so, we're going to get an error. Okay, so those are the different documents that we're looking for that are required. And this is from the website. These are examples of approved emergency fund. So we have the medical emergencies, like sometimes like you go get checked and then they end up finding more than what you're there for. We also have the immigration and visa related expenses. This is super helpful for international students who has to renew their visa. Sometimes it will mean that they have to go back to their home country to renew this and then come back to the US. So, it's pretty costly. Legal expenses, for anything that you may need that for. Home or vehicle like repair emergencies. So for this one, like it can't be an upgrade. It has to be like an accident, a weather event, or crime. Something that I noticed with the applications is that there's a huge increase of like theft for the forgot what it was, like the battery. I forget the name, but there was a theft for something. So those are things that we can like help fund. And then we have the gender affirming care expenses, and then moving expenses. So moving expenses is something that I actually added when I was like applying for oh yeah, yes, the catalytic converter. Yes. So be careful. I mean, it's really hard to like protect yourself from that because you have to park your car and leave it, like no one's really watching it, but there was an increase on that, so that's a little scary. But going back to the moving expenses, that's something that I actually added when I was applying for this position, just because with my experience like as a graduate student, moving is like part of like sometimes things don't work out with the roommate, or the apartment you're in is like not livable anymore, so you have to move, and that's a costly process while being in your graduate program. And then I also just like want to show you a list of like what are kind of applications that are denied. So the first one is, in terms of medical costs, if it's like routine and planned, it's not really an emergency or unforeseen circumstance. Like it's gonna happen. You sign up for it. You signed it. Like there was an intention to it. Health or dental insurance fees. That's just something that we also have to decide on. Like, I mean, I wish like medical insurance are free because like we all need that, but in terms of fees, we're not able to fund that. Basic needs is another one. So groceries, rent, mortgage, utility, and internet access. If you do struggle with this, I recommend that you apply to USC Basic Needs funding, and that will open on January 29th. I checked our website. Education costs, I know like tuition and fees are super expensive. I didn't come with like any scholarship, so I totally get that, but that's another thing that our fund cannot cover. And then professional development. So for that, we have the GSG Professional Development Fund, and it will open on March 2024. And then care-related expenses, you just have to make sure that you are applying under Caretaker Subsidy Grant and not the emergency fund. So other things is the initial visa fee. So I know I mentioned earlier that renewal is fine, like, we can fund that. But the initial fee of like getting a visa and also like the CVIS fee that international students have to pay for, that's just, like your responsibility when you are applying for schools like abroad and signing up to attend the school. And then non-urgent car and home repairs, so like aesthetic repair, when there's like a scratch, typical and expected car maintenance, which is like, oil change, battery replacement. Because again, those are the things that, when you got a car, like it's gonna happen like every 5,000 miles, like you are gonna be getting an oil change. So we want to make sure that we can use the funds for those who like got into an accident, or just like any like unfortunate things that may happen while you're in your graduate program. Similar with homes, like upgrades furnitures or appliances. Because I just think about like, if you move to a new place, sometimes you just need, or for the most part, right, like if you're like on survival mode, you just need the basic necessities. You don't actually need like a new fridge, not unless you don't have one. But if that's the case, you just have to make sure that you really describe that in your personal statement. But anything that's like, like an upgrade, it's not an emergency. So non-urgent moving expenses, new furniture and appliances. And then other one is a DMV renewal fee. Like I understand like it can get expensive, but again, when you sign up for a car, you know that this is something that happens every year. All right, and then here is for like the caretaker subsidy. So approved ones will be cost of babysitter, childcare facilities, educational or technological needs. I know we have a lot of like PhD students with their dependents that they said like, hey, like we need an iPad so that I can do my writing, I can do my work, and my child could be occupied with their iPad. So things like that, and then medical costs for a terminally ill family member. So for some students, they do take care of their parents or sometimes grandparents, and we have this fund to like just help alleviate that cost a little bit. Some examples of the denied one will be no proof of dependency. So sometimes like there's applicants that would just claim like, oh, my aunt lives with me and yada yada, like I take care of them, but we can't really like make the connection. So we just want to make sure that it's clear. And then sometimes there's like receipts that are not clear. It's like, like they're asking for support with like cost of babysitter, but they turn in receipts that are not relevant to that. So we also like deny that. Insufficient translation. We have some applications that are in different languages, so we just like want to make sure that it's translated, because we can't assume that there's anyone from the committee that knows the language. So just to make sure that it's all there. Along with that is the currency exchange. Just make sure that it's provided, otherwise like we can't really like put two and two together. Like we're not gonna take our time to like research everything just to make sense of the application. So I put the responsibility to the applicant to make sure that whatever they turn in will be understood by the committee. And then requested documents were not submitted within the given deadline. So like I said, like we do follow up with them, and we also give them a deadline, because if I wait, then it means that I'm not able to turn in the list for the recipients, and then it just really delays the process for disbursing the funds. So I give them a deadline, and if they don't respond within those given deadline, then I have to deny their application. All right, I know I said a lot, and I walk you all through the different sections of the grant. So I just want to take a pause here and take any questions. All right, question in the chat. How can we help encourage our colleagues to apply for this grant again if they got denied in the past. It could be discouraging, but all of the grants mentioned tonight sounds like a great resource. So something that I personally do when I have to deny an application is that I send them a message saying like what was missing in the application. And if it's something that aligns with the grant, but they just, didn't submit like certain documents, I encourage them to reapply. So I make that extra step to make sure that I'm not just denying and not saying anything, because I get it. Like sometimes you get denied and then you don't hear like any reason unless you ask. So I make sure that I put a note like as to why, whether it's like, oh hey, like we're just missing this, please turn it in and I will consider it. Or hey, GSG Grants Review Committee. So I don't do this work alone. I cannot possibly just do it by myself. We get a lot of like applications every month. And I also like want to make sure that I minimize my bias on this as much as possible. So the committee like really helps with that because not everyone is from the EC program in this committee. There's different senators from the different graduate programs. So we really help like balance each other out and also like give perspective on the applications, because sometimes like there's an application that could be like really layered and we're just kind of confused as to like, does it align with what the grant can cover, or can we find loopholes, because like we want to make sure that we're advocating for the students and we're not just like denying with no reason. Hold on. Before you go to the next page, can Franklin and Alexis share a little bit about their experience being part of the grants committee?
Franklin, I'll let you go first on this one.
Yeah, so I think it's very important to one. I mean, like I mentioned earlier, the reason for me to getting involved within like the grant community is so that I can ensure when students are asking questions of how to apply, I'm able to answer some of those things. And so when reviewing these grants, there's oftentimes, like small mistakes where students are able to make those corrections. Like for example, like Kim mentioned, the STARS report, it has to show that specific that students that are currently enrolled in that semester. Sometimes it could be where students are like, for example, like one will be like students want an upgrade, like their laptop is not working, they want to upgrade it and like a new computer, but unfortunately that does not cover it. So I think it's great, being involved in this committee, so you could kind of know the logistics side of it, so that you could get familiar with these applications. And I think it's very important to get involved in these type of communities if you have time. But also I definitely do also encourage students to also, share this information, whether if you may not be interested in joining or being the grant committee review. It's important that students are aware of these.
Yeah, thank you, Franklin and Kim. For me, I think being part of the grants review committee has given me a wider perspective and the financial resources offered here at SC. So just for context, as Franklin and I are part of GSG, representing Ross Sierra School of Education, we were required to join at least one committee or more. And so as soon as I saw this committee and I saw that it was by Kim out of all people, I was like, all right, let me just join this. But I think going into, within this specific committee and really being financially, being educated on the financial resources that are offered here, how this can, and what that looks like for like graduate and doctoral students with it really became more like very interesting, but also aligned with kind of like my values and kind of like the ultimate goal that I had. And so when going through like the process of review committee, like for me, I really take it step by step in reviewing each application and making sure like I double check just to make sure that everything is aligned. I want to make sure that the students are not missing any documents, that it's very clear. Because not only do I review this and I will also leave comments just to make sure that everything's all good. But at the end of the day, our director of grants, Kim, will have the final word just to do one last final check. And so it's not just like a one and done deal. We make sure that everything is on there, to make sure that you can all get the money that you all need. And so, yeah, I kind of use a lot of like my empathetic and holistic approach when looking at my applications, just to ensure like, I'm able to really understand, different situations that are going on, and being more like just socially and emotionally aware of like of what I'm reading, going through, just to ensure that I have a really good idea and understanding on like what students are asking for, and then really try and making sure to connect it back with like, the required documents that we went over, and make sure that, it's something that aligns with whether we can approve it, deny it, or move it to the next cycle. So it's been a really good experience. And not only can folks from GSG or RSOC can join, almost anyone can join this committee if you're really interested in wanting to, be that support system, and, gain some experience on what that looks like in terms of handling grants and going over applications. It's really helpful and becomes you more just aware as a whole. And so it's been a really great experience so far. I'm really, we're all excited to continue to do this work for the rest of this semester. And then, yeah, we'll go from there. And then I'll go ahead and pass it back to Kim if there's anything else we want to talk about for this.
Yeah, thank you all for sharing your experience. And definitely I want to highlight that as part of the review committee, like you do have a voice in like what applications like get approved, because I'll be like I guess like I'm the last one to have like a say. But it really helps when the committee like reviews it first and then leaves like very thorough notes. So when I'm reading it, I could be like, oh, okay, like you have a point there. Like maybe like on the first look, it doesn't really align with the grant, but you were able, they're able to point out something that I'm just like, you know what, because of that part, like I'll consider it. So, just things like that. So know that you have a voice. Like I'm not just like asking you to review and then I'll just like do whatever I want. Like no, like I really consider like what they have to say. So really, I'm really thankful for my grants review committee. So next slide. So what funds does the committee review? We heavily review for the emergency fund and the caretaker subsidy grant. Our committee does not review for the professional development fund, but if that's something that you're interested in, I left the director's like contact. I know Franklin is part of that. You can share more about that. I know they got a lot of like applications like last semester. I think it was like around 400, and I don't know how much Franklin read, but I bet it was a lot. So share more.
Yeah, I reviewed 50 applicants, and this is why, like, I think it was important for all of us to, create like these types of the info sessions, because, for example, when I reviewed the professional development grant, not a lot of Rossier students apply. I only seen about like 2 or 3 applicants. So I think it's very important, to ensure that, students are aware about this grant. And then within that committee, I think is also important, because you start to evaluate, their students, professional development, like trying to join, a specific membership like NACADA, for example, or, trying to use those funds for a conference. That's some of the things that students have applied for. And so that's also another opportunity for students to get involved and to be in the community as well. So it's been a great experience being part of these committees, just because you kind of get the logistics side of it, and then share this information to students, so that if they have any questions or concerns, like you could always reach out to the director. You could also reach out to me. I'll be more than welcome to assist you.
Thank you for sharing about that. And then the other one is the Neuropsychological Evaluation Fund. So I know it's something that I've talked about earlier, but our committee doesn't review for that, because we do have the Director of Accessibility Affairs like reviewing that. And next. All right. More about this committee. This is a volunteer role, and then if you are interested, these are the dates of like when the grant reviews will happen. We're gonna have 3 different cycles. For March, we're doing it twice, just because we have a hard deadline of like everything has to be turned in before April 1st. A typical caseload is a total of 5 to 6 applications. Again, I just like want to make sure that it's not like a heavy caseload, and that everyone, has a chance to really just like thoroughly review the applications. And if you're interested, make sure to email me at gsgtgea@usc.edu. And also, like, you just have to attend the 30-minute Zoom committee orientation. It's just me, like, going over like how, like, the different categories and eligibilities, and also like how to leave a review on the application. So I have one coming up on Monday at 6 p.m. And congrats! You have learned about GSG grants and how to submit a complete application, and also possibly join my committee. And I thank you. So I have my email again. Yeah. And if you have any questions about the grant, if you're like applying for it, like I'm really